This is Hemant.
And Jessica.
We're here for the Friendly Atheist podcast, and it's Friday night as we're recording this, and there was just a lot we wanted to get off of our chests. Because believe it or not, stuff happens in the news that's kind of annoying.
So much stuff.
So the one we wanted to start off with, and who knows, this will probably take the entire time we're going to talk. Let's talk about this Mike Pence thing that happened this week.
Oh my, Hemant, I have opinions on it.
Do you? I have them too. Okay, so in case people don't know what we're talking about, here's the background of why this even became a story. A couple of days ago, the Washington Post, Ashley Parker, the journalist there, posted an article all about Karen Pence, Mike Pence's wife, and basically what her role is.
Out of the spotlight.
She's totally out of the spotlight. Which is why the article was interesting, because it's saying she really does play a role behind the scenes, especially as a prayer warrior, someone who is Mike Pence's right-hand woman, kind of, and so, which makes sense. She's his wife.
His sort of moral compass, he kind of describes her as.
And at one point, and this is not news. I mean, if you follow anything about the Pences, you know they're hardcore evangelical Christians now, and she's a big part of that, and whatever. That's fine. No, like that in itself shouldn't be a big deal. But I'm going to read you the one part of the article that got so much attention. And it was actually quoting something that was in the news like
years ago,
more than a decade ago.
Yeah.
In 2002, Mike Pence told The Hill that he never eats alone with a woman other than his wife, and that he won't attend events featuring alcohol without her by his side either. So, and by the way, if you could hear a baby in the background, hi, we're doing this in my house.
Hemant kidnapped a baby. Everybody send help.
I'm sure she'll figure out what she's doing. Anyway, so the idea here is that Mike Pence can't, basically there's a rule. He cannot eat dinner or lunch or whatever with a woman that's not his wife because, as the thinking in evangelical circles often goes, then you would be tempted. That's the first step to an affair. That's why you can't do that. And that's why he doesn't want to be at events with alcohol without his wife nearby either. And if I can add one thing to that, it's that this is not a new concept in evangelical circles. This is actually going back to something Reverend Billy Graham used to do.
It's called the Billy Graham rule.
It's called the Billy Graham rule now, basically. And I could have the story wrong, but my understanding of it is when he was kind of at the peak of his career, according to Billy Graham, he went to his hotel room and there was basically a naked woman sprawled on the bed who basically was there to get Billy Graham in a compromised position, like, oh, you're in a hotel room with a naked woman. That way she could expose the scandal and basically take him down or blackmail him and get money. And Billy Graham, so he says, like, he left the room. He made sure someone knew about it. He didn't want that to ever take him down because he wasn't going to act on that or anything. And so he basically instituted this rule for himself and people in his ministry saying, I don't want to be around other women by ourselves because that could be a compromising thing. So anyway, that's kind of where this comes from. And then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. And
why is this a big deal? Because here's the criticism I would see from conservatives, which is one criticism anyway, which is it's him and his wife. They have this rule for themselves. It's their marriage. You don't have to like it. Who cares?
Well, I think the biggest problem I see with this, I mean, no, not the biggest. There's all of the problems. The thing that kind of sticks with me the most is this idea, because him saying this and him abiding by this rule, whether he still does or ever did, it means explicitly he does not have any women friends. He doesn't have any women whom he considers peers. He doesn't have any, what's the word I'm looking for?
Colleagues or anything
thank you, that's
like
what I was looking for. That means he is utterly devoid of the voice of any women in his life outside of a context that is social.
Religious within his family with his wife.
Social. Like, okay, us and our spouses going out to dinner is a different thing than if you and I get dinner talking about like this podcast or whatever.
Right.
It's a different context. And so I find it...
So he's always in his bubble then,
He's always in
because
his
what else
bubble.
are you going to talk about
Right.
if the only people you associate with are like family members or
and I find it...
or men?
I find it really, really alarming that he doesn't have any peers who are women.
Who are close enough that he would actually
Yeah.
dare to have drinks with them or food with them.
Right. And
The Onion article about this said, Mike Pence.
thing?
Yeah, Mike Pence tells waiter, please remove like Mrs. Butterworth from my table until my wife arrives.
Right. And I just...
I'm
just
totally
find-
butchering that headline.
No, I mean, you nailed it. I just find it so deeply unsettling that in 2017, this is a conversation that is having of... It's not even the like 1980s trope of like, can men and women be friends? It's, can men and women be... not even alone together. Sorry, I went really
It's
long
not like
without
they're in a
yelling.
hotel room. No,
Yeah,
they're like...
in a restaurant. So that's just a thing that I find just deeply appalling
this is-
and hurtful, frankly.
This is one issue, which is that if he can't even meet alone with women,
Right.
what incentive is there to hire women in high positions?
Right, so
Because
that's-
Joe Biden met with Hillary Clinton for lunch often as Secretary of State and Vice President.
Yeah, and it's...
Did they not even look at women then for those positions because Mike Pence would never be able to meet with them? I mean, that's something that I want to know then.
Well, and it's also kind of a cart horse thing. Like, does he not want to be alone with women because he's very infrequently alone with women? And so if he is alone with a woman, he thinks that there is impropriety there or suspicions thereof. Or... I don't know, like, is he so fucking wrapped up in his own little bubble that he really doesn't see that as a problem? I think that is kind of the crux of it for me, is that I don't, not only do...
He thinks that what he's doing is totally normal.
Not even normal, but noble.
Yeah.
And then, on top of that, and there's... Again, I think we're just going to bust through all the layers here,
Yeah.
because the next thing is the conservative blogger Matt Walsh. I want to say his name
Yeah,
is?
Matt Walsh
Okay.
basically said, what reason would you ever have
Right.
to go out with a woman who's not your wife?
Okay, Hammett, can you think of a reason that
Well-
you would have to be alone in a room with a woman? Let's
I
burst
have
thinking caps up.
colleagues. I have friends who are women. I have business, if you want to call this a business thing. I have a business venture, whatever.
Yeah,
with women.
this is a very
I mean,
profitable business venture. But so the idea,
But that's the idea. I have college friends who are women. I go out with them all the time
Yeah.
to have lunch or whatever, or dinner occasionally. You know why? It's nice to catch up.
yeah,
And my wife and I didn't go to the same college. They don't it's not the same type of relationship. So it's not like we're going to bring everyone along. But again, it's because I had no problem making friends with women in different stages of my life, in different parts of my life.
Yeah.
And when I go out with them, it's because I want to talk shop or I want to catch up on
Yeah.
each other's lives and stuff.
you have a relationship that, spoiler alert, is not sexual.
Right.
I can't believe, Hammett, you're so brave. You've managed to be friends with so many women without
Yeah.
banging any of. It's just like it's like noble.
I don't know.
It's noble. And
It's noble
I'm
and it's
proud
every
of you.
description of me in high school. There you go.
So the fact that
this
your
brings
Matt
up-
Walshes of the world ask that question is like, are you fucking like that means I'm not. I know you
Yeah.
want to. That means that Matt Walsh, whether he's being glib or whatever, he has never had dinner with a female friend or
Right.
hung out with a female friend, and I find that to be appalling.
Yeah, by himself.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
just find that to be so disgusting and so siloing of
Yeah.
the sexes, and then
And it's
these
one
are the
thing
peop-
if Matt Walsh does that, because who the hell cares what Matt Walsh does in his
But for
private
him
life?
to say-
but for the vice
Why would-
president
Oh, okay, yeah.
to say, I'm not going to do this because it's my religion. And there was a lot of people saying, if Keith Ellison, the Muslim Democratic leader,
Yes, that's
said, I
another-
don't meet with women because I'm a Muslim and it would go against my religion,
they would
the
lose their
conservatives would
goddamn minds.
go
Lose their
crazy.
goddamn minds.
But when it's an evangelical Christian, it's like, oh, it's him. Let him. Don't be mad at him. It's noble, right? Like you said.
Yeah, there's a really interesting piece, and we'll put it in the notes if I find it. But it's just about how all those So recently there was that photo op of the men deciding on women's health, and it's all white guys in suits, and someone's like, "Oh, Kellyanne Conway is just off camera." Like, I don't give a shit. And somebody an article. God, I can pull it up in a second. But they talked about how it's a tactic. It's not bad PR. It's not a gaffe.
This is all part of a strategy to do what?
Well, the sort of thrust of the article was that Trump very much ran on a campaign of, the Make America Great Again, I think, is a very slightly coded make white men great again. White men...
Because Democrats are accused of playing identity politics. Yeah. They care about minorities and,
how dare we?
And LGBTQ people, but not white guys.
Right. So what I read was it's a tactic of making sure that we understand that white men are back in power, where they belong. Dad has the reins back or whatever.
And no woman's even getting a seat at this table unless a token here and there.
Yeah, and it's a very... this person supposes that it's a very purposeful thing that they're doing, that they want to show the GOP that, look at, white guys got it. We're back. We're back in power. Sorry you had to look at a black guy for 8 years. That must have been rough for you.
And look at them breaking everything.
Right.
But, okay, again, going back to the issue at hand here, it's the fact that he's vice president. I don't care what he does in his private life. Yeah. But what does it say when the vice president's like, I'm not meeting with women by themselves?
It says that he doesn't care about women. It says that he is a misogynist of the highest order. It means that he does not see women as peers or people whose thoughts and opinions are worth hearing. It means that he thinks women are either temptation or his wife.
So let's
talk
about
his mother wife, which I've taken to calling her
because she calls her mother or something.
Deeply uncomfortable.
Let me go back to what you're saying right now, because I think the pushback from conservatives would be he is not saying they are unequal or unworthy or whatever. He just doesn't want to be alone in private with them. He's fine with meeting them in some public space or whatever. But what does it say? What is he saying about the women he might meet with alone? Mm-hmm. That they're going to jump him?
I don't think that's it. I think it's the opposite. I think it's about
he's going to do something.
You have so little self-control that you can't be in a room alone with Angela Merkel and keep it in your fucking pants for a minute.
Right. What does it say about Mike Pence? What is he saying?
Right here? It's fucking disgusting, and it is beyond. It's just so far beyond anything I can imagine. A human being in 2017 saying that being alone in a room with a woman is inappropriate. That's
because I can't control myself, or she can't control herself. Those are the only two options.
It's fucking
That's
disgusting.
Insane.
It's appalling, and I'm mad about it. And I'm going to be mad for a real long time.
Gia Tolentino, I hope I'm getting the name right, for The New Yorker, had a really interesting way of summarizing this whole thing, which is that, for a long time we've said that Donald Trump and Mike Pence, they are kind of opposites in a lot of ways, right? Because he's the braggart, Mike Pence is the quiet guy, whatever, behind the scenes. But on this issue, they're actually really, really similar, because they both have problems with self-control. The difference is Donald Trump will grab their pussies, and Mike Pence is so afraid he's going to grab their pussies that he just doesn't want to be alone with them.
Wow. That's actually... That's really, really interesting, because my thought was they're so how does a man who's so who's whatever, his morals are so high that he can't be in a room alone with a woman,
and Donald Trump, who has no morals,
is
more or less,
yoking himself to a man who has bragged about sexual assault. How does he how does he block those two things?
And this is not news for anyone who's been in evangelical circles for a while. There was a story that I heard years ago of someone who said he was speaking at a conference or something. He was speaking at a church. He went to the airport, and the person picking him up was a woman. I hope I'm getting the story right. And he didn't want to get in the car. She was his ride to the event, and he wouldn't do it. And there's another one that I don't know how urban legendy it is, but it's that they were at some summer camp, Bible camp sort of thing, and they needed to get back to the mainland for some reason from the summer camp. But it was basically the camp director, who was a guy, and his associate, who was a girl. He would not drive with her to the mainland to get whatever they needed. So the options were he drives by himself and leaves the woman there by herself, which is probably not safe, given the circumstances, or he had to wait for like another guy to come by, so they had a chaperone or something like that. They're two adults.
What that's making me think of is, the riddle when like the farmer has a bag of corn and a chicken and a fox, and he can
How do
only
you
fit
carry
one.
it across the river? But
I was literally doing that. Like, okay, well, he can bring the guy across and then go back.
It's unbelievable, because when you think about Mike Pence, it's saying he could not meet alone with people who he has to discuss important national business with, unless it's like, not in secret, not in private.
Yeah.
Like, he has to do it in public somewhere, or the wife has to be at his side,
Well,
I guess.
I just think, just in my life, working in, just corporate America, of how many times a day do I go into a man's office and close the door?
Right.
And imagine if every time I did that, it was like a thing. And I work in marketing. Like, I have a pretty low stakes job. If that's the case, like, if my job was in the White House and my boss was Mike Pence, and every time I went in there, he's like, whoa, leave the door open, bring a chaperone. We need to put cameras in here because
Right.
I need to make sure I can keep it in my pants. Like, what kind of disruption of your life is it's just so like implausibly impractical.
Yeah.
That it is. I posted it
And it's
yesterday. I tweeted about it saying, it's very clear that he does not have any female peers. That's what this means. And at least 4 people commented like, "Oh, I thought this was an Onion article," because it's bordering on self-parody.
Right.
It's utterly bonker. It's just I don't. Ugh.
It's frustrating, and it's kind of infuriating. And again, if it was just it was Mike Pence, the citizen, I don't care. But it's the vice president.
Yeah, that's the things I kind
Usually
of still would care. It does bother me, because I heard from a couple friends who grew up in that sort of evangelical movement. They said, "Oh yeah, no, that's how shit is. Like, women aren't allowed. It's just."
It treats women as sexual objects. It treats men as people with no self-control.
Nobody comes out looking good in this scenario.
Yeah.
Like, women are all sluts and men have zero self-control.
And you can't have a platonic relationship with anybody of the opposite sex.
Right. It's just...
Yeah. And I heard one comment like, it's a good thing he's not gay. Otherwise, he couldn't have this job, apparently.
Oh, my God. Or maybe that's best case scenario, because he would have to staff the White House with all women.
Yeah.
I like that. Let's run with that.
If only Mike Pence were gay.
Is there opposite gay conversion therapy?
If only he hypnotizes himself, gives himself a little electrical shock, then we'll be good.
I just find it to be, honestly, I know I'm kind of repeating myself at this point, but I find it so appalling. I find it appalling and just demeaning in a very personal way.
Yeah. There was a writer, Jill Filipovic, who said, powerful men, I'm quoting here, powerful men who will meet one-on-one with men, but not women, hurt women's careers. That's not moral or normal.
Mm-hmm. There's somebody else who said something similar, but it was to the effect of, if a woman had a policy that she can't be alone in a room with men, she wouldn't have meetings.
Right.
Like, what a fucking privilege it is that you have surrounded yourself by men who, by people who look and act just like you.
Yeah. If Hillary Clinton said it, what would Mike Pence be saying about her?
Whoa. Yeah. It's like that, just putting that fine a point on it of literally if somebody else was in the White House and had the exact same philosophy, people would lose their goddamn minds.
Yeah.
I just find it, in the Matt Walsh thing really stuck in my craw too, of really you can't think of a single reason that...
He said, what's the appropriate reason for a married person to go out for a meal alone with the member of the opposite sex other than family?
We went to Chipotle a couple weeks ago.
I know.
Was that an improv? I'm sorry. Courtney, I'm sorry. Sorry.
One other thing is, what does it say about, and again, I don't care about their private lives, but what does it say about Mike Pence's marriage or any other Matt Walsh's marriage? Because you would think a marriage is always centered around trust and mutual respect, and you could handle the guy going out for dinner or having a business meeting with a woman.
I do wonder...
Is that a fair criticism? That's that it's fair to judge their marriage, that you don't have even this trust that you could do it. But Mike Pence would say, no, she trusts me to do it. I don't trust myself.
I think that's the thing is, I guess, where, and we can never know, but where is the pressure for that rule coming from? Was it a sincerely mutual decision made by two grown adults who thought it through. Unlikely, but maybe. Or is it his wife saying, no, you can't be alone in a room with a woman? Or is it Mike Pence being like, sweetie, I can't do it? And she was like, okay, whatever. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And
right. I don't know who's the impetus for the rule.
I just know it's just the height, the very height of privilege.
Yeah, we're like a step away from Mike Pence saying, I will meet with you, but put on this burqa. And then
there's the other, like just the whole.
How far do we take this?
The parallels to Islam that they. Okay, real quick sidebar.
Yeah.
If I hear, I don't need to hear men say, oh, women in America are complaining about their rights. There are women in Saudi Arabia who X, Y, Z. Like, they give two fucking shits about women in Saudi Arabia. I might have said that before, but it still makes me mad. But it's just, it's so hypocritical of men being like, oh, Islam doesn't respect women. Like, as if your white Christian ass respects women at all.
Right.
Women, again, either mothers or sexual objects.
And this is not new in a lot of religious circles.
No,
yes.
It's very old. And those are the
we see it, by the way, in
sex
education, too, with like quote-unquote Christian sex education, where,
Jesus.
The implication, even if they don't say it, is that if you're a guy and you've had sex, like, you shouldn't do it, whatever. You should wait until marriage at this point forward.
Right.
But if you're a woman, if you're a girl who's had sex or done anything sexual, like, you're basically considered a slut. I mean, that's not just Christian. I know that's basically a universal thing, but yeah, it's that double standard, though. Mm-hmm. It's one response to the Matt Walsh question of, what's the appropriate reason for a married person to have dinner with someone of the opposite sex? The same reason you would have dinner with a person of the same sex. Yeah. That's the answer.
I can't. Yeah, no, it's just really frustrating, and it feels like we've regressed so hard in the last 6 months, doesn't it?
Yes, in so many ways.
I'm just really tired of having to defend, like, what I think should be common sense. Like,
yeah. I think that's why this was such a big deal. Again, this article, the thing they were quoting was from 2002.
And he hasn't commented on it since, has he?
No, I don't think he's commented on it. And I don't think, and it wasn't even like the point of the story. The story was about Karen Pence. This was a little tangential
and people grabbed it
note.
And ran with it.
Yeah, they grabbed it out of there and ran with it. I think it's just interesting because when I heard that, I'm like, that's not news. I've come to expect that from certain types of evangelicals. I've heard that story before.
Sure.
But I think for a lot of people, you thought we were gone with that. Like, that's such a fringe idea. But no, it's pretty well in the mainstream. Jezebel, the website, had a great question that that was their headline of their story, which is basically they crowdsourced the question: have you ever dined with a member of the gender you are romantically interested in who is not your spouse? If so, did you fuck them? A lot of yeses followed by nos, as one commenter has put it.
I thought Jezebel did something about, like, what the fuck does Mike Pence think happens at dinner?
What does he do at Chipotle? Yeah.
Yeah, God, the whole thing. And, I mean, okay, like, the dinner thing we've stuck on for a long thing because it deserves to be talked about. It's fucking bonkers. But he won't be at an event where alcohol is served without his wife. So, say, hypothetically, he's like, not in the United States, and his wife is in the United States, or he's in a different part of the country, and he goes to a reception in his honor where they, because it's not whether he drinks
he's in
alcohol.
Russia.
Right.
Yeah,
they're
throwing
vodka,
a party for him.
Warm vodka, is that a thing?
I don't know.
Somebody's throwing a party in his honor. His wife
is not there.
Cannot attend or does not attend. Because it's not about whether he's drinking or not, from my understanding, and I could be reading it wrong. It is if there's alcohol present.
Yeah, if there's alcohol present, because who knows what will happen.
Yeah, so he should never come to my house because there's just wine flowing constantly. I've really set myself up to be a wino on this podcast.
We don't have a box of wine today.
I miss it.
As one commenter on my site put it, even if you go outside all the reasons we're offering, another reason Mike Pence may not want to meet with a woman privately is that it's appearances. What will other people think of you or think of your relationship with whoever it is you're meeting with?
They think
if you're meeting alone.
Human person.
Right. And like, that's the thing. If I knew, he's meeting with a woman for some business, government reason, yeah, okay, that's what it is. I'm done thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean...
But only in those types of circles, this evangelical circle where everything boils down to sex, is it, it's a man and a woman meeting and they're not married? Like, you can't, that's why they don't even want people dating without a chaperone.
Yeah.
Or,
And it's such a childish view of the
Yes.
world. Like, I remember when I was like kindergarten, I would like hear a man and woman DJ on the radio and be like, oh, I bet they're smooching, because I was an idiot and I was 6.
Right.
But, like, the idea that a man and woman can't be in proximity to each other, like, Hemant, you and I have spent the bulk of our time together, like, locked in a room.
Right.
And just anybody who would listen to this show and be like, oh, they're definitely fucking off mic, is so, like...
At Chipotle, no less.
At Chipotle.
Yes.
I haven't had Chipotle in a minute. But, like, it's so far afield from reality.
Right.
That it's laughable.
It is laughable for us, because we know this is like, why is this weird? It's not weird. We do this all the time, and we know too many people who do this sort of thing all the time.
And further, nobody who's listening is like, oh shit, are they alone together? How I can't believe, like, is Courtney just upstairs? Like, I don't understand, because just taking it out to its logical conclusion is utter insanity.
Right.
It is just. It's unimaginable.
It's frustrating. Okay, I think we've killed this entire story. I don't know what else there is. Way too long, but it is amusing for Mike Pence to totally judge gay people for their... That's what he's known for, right? Judging gay people left and right.
He's known for being a prick.
That too. But, saying gay people can't get married, fighting for that in his home state, making sure gay people are discriminated against. But the second people start judging his marriage, it's like, now that's unfair. That's out of bounds for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to a different story.
Okay.
I'm trying to think which one I like the most. Since we're on the subject of women, let me go to this one, which is, there are some sects with a C.
Sects.
Yes. Of ultra-Orthodox Jews who cannot handle women, like, on posters and billboards and stuff in their communities. So in some cases, their newspapers in these ultra-Orthodox areas, they showed a picture of, like, the famous Bin Laden raid.
Picture.
The one with Obama sitting down and Hillary Clinton's there. And they photoshopped her out. Yeah. And there was another one with world leaders from across the world. And they had Angela Merkel. And they had a couple other people also photoshopped out of the picture. They just weren't there. And it's appalling to see, like, you're distorting reality.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, I don't know what you're trying to accomplish. They were there. You can't just pretend like they weren't. But the kicker came this week when a poster for the Smurfs movie went up in Israel, in an ultra-Orthodox part of Israel, and they cropped out Smurfette.
No.
Because you can't have her on the poster because...
The Onion again?
Nope.
This is The Onion. It's The Onion.
All real. Because I guess, again, if you see Smurfette on the billboard, you can't keep it in your pants. That's the theme of this whole That's the title of the podcast.
Do we title our podcast?
No, but this one's going to be called Keep It in Your Pants.
Keep it in your pants, Pence. It's a little wordplay.
Yes. Keep it in your pants.
God damn it, you...
Ha!
You one-upped
me
again,
But that's the thing, what are they trying to accomplish by doing this?
So, it's... So, you know when you get rage fatigue? When you're like, I can't be angry about this anymore?
Because
some reason... So, like, the Mike Pence thing makes me insane.
Yes.
And I hear something like this, and I go blank. I just can't... It's so unjustifiable and so absurd and so... Like, how... It's 2017! It is 2017.
These are the same people, by the way, ultra-Orthodox Jews. This particular group of them. These are the men who say, I'm flying on an airplane, but if a woman is sitting next to me, I cannot allow that. I can't sit next to her. She needs to move her seat. They have asked for that.
Yeah, and have been granted it, I believe.
And in some cases been granted it. Why? Because I guess incidentally
they
you're
can't
touching
keep it
someone.
in their pants.
Yeah. Well, they're like, well, I can't accidentally touch her side when I move my arm because
Then
that's sexual.
drive to Connecticut.
Right. I'm thinking like I was on a plane earlier today, like with a layover, so I did it twice. Today. I'm very tired right now.
Oh, yeah, you guys came back from it.
And so I'm like, I sat next to two people. You know what we did? It was like a, hey, nice, like whatever. Acknowledge that you exist. I'm going to go to sleep now.
That's more than I do. I pretend
right?
they're not there.
Yeah, and just I'm done. I don't know who you are, and I'm just out. But it's like, that's all you do on a plane if it's early in the morning or something. And in this case, they
Or just
can't.
like in general, guys, don't talk to the people around you on flights. I don't like it.
Right.
PSA.
Yeah, and no one's asking you to do anything. You don't even have to touch them, but just you have to sit because they just have to be near you.
Here's the thing, though. If you have these weird ass issues with women just being corporeal near you, then that is your goddamn problem.
That's your problem.
You can't march onto a commercial flight and be like, hey, can we just sort of tornado this thing and maybe we'll land how
Go
it's
buy
good for
2
me?
seats if you have to so that no one sits next to you. That's how you handle that.
It's fucking, I can't.
It's the same group of people. To quote one of the commenters on my site, Taurios, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I guess the old saying is correct. Once you go blue, you can't be a Jew. So Smurfette had to be cropped out of the painting. Which is weird. Here's the thing. They're going to play the movie, though. The reason the poster is there is because the Smurfs movie is coming there.
How do they watch movies?
I guess they're okay with watching the movie with Smurfette, but the billboard, the advertisement.
Pictures that are the issue? No, because
you're trying to get me to explain religious logic, and I can't do
You're
it.
Right. No, but that was, okay, fair enough. But I wrote, years ago, I wrote a thing for the website that Hasidic Jews in New York, I want to say.
Yes, there is a enclave of...
Well, they invented like glasses with either blinders on them, like a horse would wear, or something going on so they couldn't accidentally see a woman.
That sounds about right. I have not heard that story, but...
Well, you have, because I wrote about it, Hemmant.
I'm sure
years ago.
It's somewhere on the site. I don't read my site. It's all right.
I don't listen to this podcast. Oh, actually, really quick.
Yeah.
Can I just do a quick... something that's sort of been irking me, and I kind of want to get it off my chest.
Please.
It's not about you. I'm not mad at you. So this, I love doing this podcast. It's one of my favorite things that we do. I enjoy chatting with you. I love interviewing
I'm waiting
people.
for the but.
It's been kind of disheartening that I have been getting feedback about the way I sound.
Who's giving you that feedback?
The internet.
Oh, yeah, well.
And I understand the don't read the comments thing.
Yeah.
But I interviewed my friend Anne.
Yes.
That went up last week.
Yeah.
And she is one of the smartest people I know and a very close friend of mine. And I got not a single piece of feedback that we sounded too girly. And
I love the idea of someone listening to that interview and saying, I have a thought. I'm going to send it over.
And I'm going to go ahead and share that.
Right.
Let's see if Jess can just change her voice a little bit for my listening ears for this free podcast. So to those...
We're brought to you today by nobody.
By literally nobody as per usual. This is literally a thing we do for fun.
It is.
We don't make
we
a dime.
anger ourselves for a little while by talking about Mike Pence.
Yeah.
Then we go to Chipotle and bang on the tables, and then we go home.
Oh, yeah. So I guess to the people who have a problem with the way my voice sounds to them, like, go jump up your own ass.
Yes.
I'm not going to change the way I talk. And even if I do have an annoying voice, even if I sound like a 13-year-old girl, that doesn't make what I have to say invalid or wrong. Sorry, you have to deal with the fact that my voice is slightly higher pitched than Hemant's. I'm sure that's inconvenient for you.
I'll work on that
and
myself.
And I'm keeping you in my prayers, but you can jump up my ass.
By the way, the same thing happens for what it's worth on YouTube where they'll comment on the sound, the look, like, oh, what are your glasses today? Or my favorite, because I've made fun of this with my wife, it's dem eyebrows.
Them eyebrows, no.
That was hilarious.
What's wrong with your eyebrows?
Apparently everything says that commenter.
They're literally the most regular eyebrows I've ever seen.
I don't know. But it's the thing. This happens with, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're a writer, they're going to criticize your writing. If you're a podcaster, they'll criticize your voice.
And it's definitely a thing that, because I listen to a lot of podcasts myself, and it's definitely a thing I've heard time and time again by female podcasters who somebody writes in and says, I don't like the way you sound. You sound like a Valley girl. You sound like this. You're too chatty. You're too whatever. I just hope people kind of look in the mirror and think that, like, two women bullshitting is no different than two men bullshitting. We just sound slightly different, and sorry. Like, it's honestly a thing that happened early in the week and has really, kind of gotten under my skin, and it bummed me the fuck out because I like doing this so much.
Yeah, and then it makes you self-conscious at times,
Makes me very self-conscious. I will keep yelling and swearing in this microphone. I don't care.
I get a lot of compliments for you swearing, by the way, which is funny to me.
Oh, that
is
funny.
Yeah. Because I think you vent out a lot of people's anger, and my emotional range is very limited.
Yeah.
And so they're like,
I'm like
yes.
your id.
Yeah, pretty much. And they're like, yes, that is how I feel.
You know what I just noticed? I've started doing this because I laugh so loudly. In real life, when I laugh, I turn my head because whenever I laugh really loud, I turn from the microphone so I don't deafen our listeners. And I was talking to somebody, and every time I laughed, I would like turn my head. It's just this weird habit I've gotten into.
That is awesome.
Anyway, I know there's a sidebar, but it's just something that bummed
that.
me out. And I'm curious if there are other women who've gotten similar feedback, because I'd like to hear about it. I think it's something
let us know.
That's worth talking about.
I've definitely, as a speech coach,
I
have definitely heard that from a lot of my my students.
Yeah. Okay.
The female ones.
So next,
let me go to one more story, or another one. There was a 109-year-old woman living in Rockford, Illinois, western side of the state. She was staying with her granddaughter. Her electrical blanket caught on fire.
Oh, shit.
Scary. And thankfully, the granddaughter's husband had just recently replaced the batteries in the smoke alarms.
Oh.
So the fire alarms in their house, smoke alarms, went off.
Wait, can I guess what's about to happen?
Hold the thought for a second. So everything was fine. She got burnt a little bit, but she was fine.
She's okay.
She got whatever treatment she needed. Where am I going with this story?
Is there a chance that she maybe, instead of thanking her son-in-law or the smoke detectors, and in spite of the fact that God started the fire, super gave credit for God for rescuing her?
How did you know?
Oh my God, psychics are real!
This is the actual sentence or two from the newspaper article about this. She said there are two reasons she was able to escape without more serious injuries. The first, God.
Number one.
The second, working smoke detectors in the home. Now,
which, in her defense, God invented smoke detectors, so
and
check
like you said,
mate.
fire. Which is okay. So here's the thing. So I posted about this.
Yeah.
I had the exact same reaction, which is, come on. Thank your grandson. Thank the paramedics who came by. Thank the smoke detectors, whatever. But if you're going to thank God for saving you, you got to blame God for the fire or the electrical blanket, whatever. People got mad at me because I'm picking on an old woman. She's 109. Shut the fuck up. Let her go. And this is what I don't get. It is irrelevant to me, her age or the situation, because we see this with people who get in car accidents and they thank God that everything's okay afterward, or they maybe someone died in the accident,
4 people
but they
died,
were
9
alive.
survived. Praise Jesus.
Yeah, praise Jesus, who didn't care about those other people who were in a Christian
They didn't pray enough.
like church or something. But that's
know
the
what they
thing.
did.
No one has any problem when you point out the hypocrisy or the illogical part of that. But for some reason, because the victim in this case was an older woman, somehow this became an unfair thing to pick on. And I just don't get that logic. It's an illogical thing to do. It doesn't matter who did it. It's fair game.
You know what it reminds me of is how everybody has a racist grandparent.
In what way?
Well, just, you're at Thanksgiving dinner and your grandpa says something that's problematic, and it's like, all right, he's 87 years old. Like,
you'll let it slide.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like it's that kind of thing. And I have mixed feelings about that because on the one hand, I don't know, are you going to change. I don't know what I think about this because I know if it was my grandmother, I wouldn't say shit.
Oh, I wouldn't. Different story if it's my own family or something.
Yeah.
But again, if this happened to a 36-year-old woman or 36-year-old man for that matter, I don't think anyone would have any problem with me pointing out that this is a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
The fact that she's old does not change the issue.
People believe, for better or for worse, that the elderly deserve our respect for being elderly.
Yeah. And I'm not disrespecting her. I'm so glad she's okay.
Yeah.
Like, this is a tangential thing. It's just worth pointing out.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people will give credit to God for things that God does not deserve any credit for.
I would argue anything.
Pretty much anything. And in this particular case, when it's so obvious that the grandson or the smoke detectors deserve some credit here, they're not the second ones on the priority list. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's just one of those things I can't really get my hackles up either way.
At what point? So I guess the bigger question here.
I don't care that you're.
The bigger question here. At what point do you let something slide? Is it if it's a family member?
It is when you turn 67. Then you can no longer call anybody racist.
Okay.
When they turn 58. You have to stop talking to them about religion.
Okay.
I'll send you my chart.
Thank you. That would be very helpful. So after that age, they could say anything illogical, and I have to shut the hell up about it.
I think there's also kind of an element of infantilizing her.
Yeah.
If you're like, oh, I'm going to let her off the hook because she's very, very elderly.
Yeah.
Is that a disrespect in a way because you're infantilizing this woman? Like, oh, she's old. She doesn't know what she's saying. I don't know.
Let me add one more dimension to this whole story, which is that there was a comment on my website. I can't verify this, but this is what the person said. This is my grandmother. You are mocking. I guess they were searching for articles about this story. Maybe they came across the one that I wrote. Her faith, she said, is incredible. She's a kind, brilliant, generous woman. She's well aware, this person said, of the role humans played in her survival. That was the comment from the granddaughter, which again, it's like, I'm sure, I have no doubt she's a lovely woman. I'm glad she's okay. That doesn't mean that what she said made any sense.
Yeah.
At least the way she phrased it. And this is one of the things, when you go into surgery, I don't care who you are, and things turn out okay, especially if it's a horrific accident or something, by all means, go ahead and thank God if you want to thank God.
Yeah.
But while you're at it, please, in order, why don't you give thanks to the doctors first and the nurses who helped you and the family who was there for you. And then, later on, if you want to say, I'm glad God helped me too. Like, if you believe in God and you think God has your life planned out for you, God caused that accident too.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense.
It's definitely cognitive dissonance of the highest order, but I don't know. Can you tell the things that I really can't get myself riled up over?
We don't even have the box of wine here.
I've already done all my yelling about Mike Pence and my tone policing. I can't yell about an old lady.
Let's go to something totally different.
Okay.
Here's the question for you.
Okay.
Who is more afraid of death? Atheists or people who are seriously religious? Devoutly religious. Let's talk about the devoutly religious.
Okay, so...
Are they afraid of death?
So there's two sides of that, right? There's the one side of, well, you die, you're going to heaven forever, you're going to see your dog from when you're 6 and your grandma, etc. But also hell?
Yeah.
Is a possibility.
Well, if they're devoutly religious, let's assume, and they believe all the stuff...
They assume they're going to heaven.
They assume they're going to heaven.
So I would say...
So hell's out of the picture here.
Okay. I would say evangelicals fear death less than atheists. Although, as an atheist myself, I don't have a particular fear of death either. No, tell me the answer.
This is before I get to the quote-unquote answer, that's the way most people usually think about it, right? If you're devoutly religious and you're going to heaven, barring
What's there to fear?
What's there to fear? Yeah, it's like, death is going to suck, but there's
and by
something better waiting for me on the other side.
By that same token, people often talk about like, oh, why do you mourn people who died? They, in your mind, are in a better place, and you'll see them again. So.
And that's what they say at their funerals, too. At religious funerals, like, they're in a better place.
Right.
And you're going to see them eventually.
Right.
So, yeah, it's true. Devoutly religious people do not fear death as much as, like, compared to any other group of people. Usually, the thinking goes, atheists, because we think there is no afterlife, and because we believe this is the only life we have, the thinking is you have so much to fear with death because it is over. But researchers recently published a study where they looked at all the different, they did a meta-analysis where they looked at a whole bunch of different studies. Yes, that's I trademark. They looked at all these different studies.
That should have been your blog. Instead of
that would have been
Friendly
better than
Atheist.
Friendly Atheist.
The Hammond meta-analysis? Ugh,
That would have
so
gotten old
close.
after about 2 days. They did a study. They looked at a whole bunch of studies where they studied this. And what they found is that if you make religion into a spectrum from atheism to devoutly religious, it's an upside-down U in terms of fear of death, which is that if you're super religious on the far end of the spectrum,
Or an
it's a
atheist.
very low fear of death. But if you're an atheist, you also have a very low fear of death.
Cool.
Now, why is that? Why do you think atheists don't fear death?
I mean, I can only speak for myself.
Yes.
And I think it's always hard to talk about atheists as one.
Yeah, we don't all think the same.
Right.
We're all
It's a
different
really
in that way. Right.
That said, so I can speak for myself.
Speak for all atheists.
For all. I'm the official mouthpiece of atheists. For me.
You just made a lot of misogynists very angry.
That's fine. That's
You
literally,
can't speak for atheists with that voice.
That's literally all I do is make misogynists angry. It's kind of my whole jam. So for me, it's sort of like the same thing of like being afraid to go to sleep at night. Like you're just unconscious. You're just not there. And I think Christopher Hitchens had a really great quote about knowing you're dying. Like he's not afraid of death, but it's like you're at a great party and somebody's tapping you on the shoulder telling you have to leave early. That I can super relate to because I have the worst FOMO in the entire world, and God forbid I miss a single thing.
Right.
But yeah, for
What's
me,
the Louis
it's-
C.K. joke? Like, you're afraid that, I'm going to butcher this too, sorry. But you're afraid like life is over or like everything's going to end. It's like, no, the world's going to go
Yeah,
on.
you're gonna end.
You're going to end. You're not going to be there to experience it.
Yeah.
Which sucks. But again, why do you think
I
atheists would
just-
not fear death?
I guess I just don't know what I would fear because it's not like, oh, I'm going to die and I don't know what's going to happen afterwards, or there's some big question mark after my death.
Yeah.
It's just, I die, I lose consciousness and do not regain it.
And you know what? That is pretty much what the researchers said.
See, I told you I
You
speak
win.
for all atheists.
You do. And what they said is atheists kind of know that,
Yeah.
okay, this is going to be it. I don't want to die.
No.
But
Yeah, and
I know that I'll drift into unconsciousness or that it's just over.
Yeah, and I do think that's an important delineation between being afraid of death, quote unquote, and like having any sort of like I don't want to die, and it's definitely something I'm not in any way looking for, and I'm
Right.
afraid of it in so much of like I don't want to get hit by a car when I walk out of your house, and
Right.
like I've got shit I want to do. I'm gonna get a dog soon. I want it. So it's not. I guess there's a difference between being afraid to die and being afraid of death.
Yeah. And
Would you say that's a fair?
I think that's
delineation?
totally fair. And again, those two groups of people, the devoutly religious and atheists, deep in their hearts, they know what's going to happen to them after they die, and that's why they don't fear death. I mean,
That's
I
kind of
think
cool. Actually,
I think the
There's
devoutly
something
religious
romantic about that.
There is, and again, I think the devoutly religious totally wrong about their conclusions,
and they
vice
think we're
versa.
wrong.
But when we talk about that upside down U on the spectrum, that means the people in the middle who don't really know what they think about God and the
'Cause
afterlife.
It's that big question mark.
It is a
the
big
unknown.
question mark, and that's why they have so much fear of death, because they don't know what's going to go on after they die.
Yeah.
We at least just like, all right, I'll go in the ground, I'll become worm food, I'll
Yeah.
do the Body Worlds
I want
exhibit.
to be a tree.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? They like put you in a pod
I've heard of
and
these
you grow
things.
into a tree.
And what's the Dane Cook joke? Then they'll chop you down and make you a Bible. Take that,
Cook.
atheists.
Why would you bring that bit is like 20 years old.
Sorry, my comedy's all 20 years old.
You
Welcome.
you're just kind of butchering up comedy here today.
That's what I'm here for. That's okay. Only 2 people are listening. there was a caveat, I should say, to the analysis, which is that it was mostly Americans they looked at when they looked at all these studies. And when they talk about devoutly religious, they're mostly talking about the big Christianity, Abrahamic religions. So,
yeah, I was going to
say. But
say.
that said, it still kind of makes sense when you think about that upside down
It
U.
totally makes sense.
So
that's kind of interesting. It's very interesting.
Fascinating article that came out. So, I don't know how much time we want to go, but let me ask you about this one.
Nothing to do.
I don't know if you
night.
saw this Netflix movie that came out last Friday. It was about Madalyn Murray O'Hair, the founder of American Atheists.
My brother texted me and said I should watch it. He hadn't seen it. He just saw a movie about atheists.
Yeah.
I was like, I just should be involved in that.
I did see it. I saw it on Friday. It was interesting. So the movie, it's called the most hated
woman in the world, or most hated woman in the country.
God, I should.
If
know
only
this,
you had
shouldn't
a
I?
Google machine in front of you.
If only I had written a review of it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
But so it's about Madalyn Murray O'Hair.
It's about Madalyn Murray O'Hair, the founder, the most hated woman in America. She's the founder of American Atheists. She was an abrasive, outspoken woman in the 60s, which, it's hard enough to do that now.
And outspoken.
I know. You'll get shit about doing that now.
Yeah.
She did it in the late 50s, early 60s. And so it was super intense. And she was more or less alone in this fight against religion.
Yeah.
The movie isn't a commercial for atheism. And it wasn't about atheism. It was about her and the fact that the storyline is that she did all this stuff, founded American Atheists, went to the Supreme Court to try to get mandatory Christian prayers out of public school and won. People hated her. And then, I'm not giving anything away here. This is part of the premise of the story. She got murdered. Yeah. And so did two of her close family members. And it was by someone who knew them. It's not, by the way, because she was an atheist, as many people might assume. Had nothing to do with that. She just got murdered by someone who thought she had a lot of money and wanted it. What was interesting is after the movie came out, it's always interesting when there's a movie about someone who's famous because we can talk to people who knew her. And I have talked to people who knew her who said, they're getting so much of the story wrong. And there's a couple ways of looking at this. I actually talked to someone yesterday who worked with her for decades with Madalyn Murray O'Hair, who said the premise of the movie that she was kind of stealing money away into secret accounts was just, wasn't true. That's not what she was doing. Gross. And that's a big premise of the movie, that she was hiding money for herself. The office worker found out about it and held her ransom, saying, give me that money. And when he didn't get what he wanted, there they went. But that wasn't how it played out. So that's what someone who knew Madalyn said.
Is it worth watching?
Yes, it is worth watching. If for no other reason than a lot of people are being exposed to atheism through this movie, even though it's not a commercial for atheism. And on the other side, one person I emailed who finally got back to me a couple days after that is her son, which is a fascinating story because when she went to the Supreme Court to fight the mandatory Christian prayers in public school, she was the mother. She was fighting on behalf of her son, who was still in school.
So he was the
plaintiff,
yeah.
And she was on the case with him. And that son, he loved his mother growing up and stuff, but he later rebelled in a sense and became a super conservative Christian.
And
he still is.
Wow.
And he runs like a right-wing conservative group. If I tell you to imagine like a Breitbart type of conservative website, that's kind of what he runs. So I asked him if he would reach out. He doesn't really do interviews about his family. He doesn't like talking about his mother. As I'm sure I sympathize with that. Yeah. It's a part of his old life. He's not that anymore. But he did respond and say one thing that really bothered him is that his stepbrother, Madalyn's other son, who was also one of the people murdered, he gets kind of portrayed in the movie as this dumb ox who kind of just loves his mother, goes along with anything she says, like, yes, mother, I will do this for you, mother. And he comes off as kind of mentally ill in that way. And what William Murray, the conservative son, said is, I thought that was an unfair portrayal of him. He was devout to Madalyn. And the way I think William phrased it is like, yeah, he fell for whatever this thing is she was selling. He was brainwashed by her, I think is how he put it. But he's like, but he wasn't an idiot. He was just under her spell. But even the son said it was unfair the way they treated my brother. And I don't think they mentioned enough of the bad things about my mother that they should have mentioned. So it was interesting. I mean, he said that, she was a communist. She was hardcore into communism, which doesn't play a role in the film because it doesn't advance that storyline. It's a 90-minute movie. You're not going to get every detail of a biography. So that one I don't really care much about. But it was interesting to see the two different sides, the one that really dislikes her now and the one that worked with her personally and knows her personally, offer their opinions on the movie. That said, it was an interesting thing just to watch and to see how they how they made a movie out of something when the details are still, in many ways, we don't know exactly what happened, how it all happened. So they have to fill in a lot of the blanks as they go along.
Sure. Ooh, that's true. I cannot imagine watching a movie about somebody I actually know.
I never,
that makes me uncomfortable.
I never met her. I actually asked, I heard from Dave Silverman, who's the president of American Atheists now, who I thought he knew her and he would have some insight. And what surprised me is he said, I didn't join American Atheists until after she had disappeared. So he never crossed paths with her. Like when he entered the organization and started working with them, it was when they disappeared and no one knew where they were, but before everyone found out what happened to them. So that weird interim period is when he got involved. Let me go to a slightly happier topic, which is not
happier
happy
than
at all.
murder.
Happier than murder. One last story, and I'm bringing this up because it happened today. We have in our country this food stamp program. If you're disabled, if you're elderly, you can't work anymore, we can give you food stamps.
Is there a Christian against food stamps?
Wait for it. This is a Texas representative, Jody Arrington. He was part of a House Agricultural Committee meeting about food stamps. And the argument he wants to make is you should have to do a certain level of work. We need to increase the amount of stuff you got to do to stay on the rolls to get your food stamps. And the argument against that is that not everyone can do the sort of work you're asking them to do. Some people are disabled. Some of them have developmental disabilities. Some of them are veterans who literally can't do the sort of things you need. They need help. So it's not like you could say, well, you got to work, I'm making this up, but you got to work 40 hours a week. Not everyone is capable of doing that, and you can't cut them off of food stamps because of that. But here's what gets me. Jody Arrington, this representative from Texas.
Is it Joe D. Arrington?
Jodey.
Oh, so
Jody.
His name is Jody.
His name is Jody.
I thought you were just saying Joe D. Arrington
I'm sorry.
really fast.
No,
it's fine.
Jody. He said he quoted, I'm going to quote him directly.
Tell me he quoted Jesus to back this up.
Yes.
No.
This is what he said to the guy who was pushing for them to not go crazy with this law. In the scripture, blah, 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 tells us in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10.
Thessalonians.
He says, for even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. If a man will not work, he shall not eat. Blah, blah, blah. I think it's a reasonable expectation that we have work requirements. Basically saying the Bible says, if you won't work, you don't get to eat. So therefore, this rule change we want to make is totally justified. That was Arrington's argument for why we should do this. And the response back is, who cares what the Bible says? And two, you can't just up it because you're interpreting a verse that way. There are people who legitimately cannot work. You can't cut them off. That's horrible. That's like the Meals on Wheels thing. You can't just cut them off. And by the way, a lot of theologians say you're misinterpreting that line to Arrington. They're saying when they said, if a man will not work, he shall not eat, they were talking about people capable of working. And if you're able to do it and you're not, that's a different story. But anyway, that was what Arrington said today.
I will never understand why wealthy people are so fucking angry that there are people who don't work.
Because they think they're giving them handouts and they are going to get dependent on it.
And I know that intellectually.
Yeah.
But it's this. I think the issue I see a lot with kind of people of that ilk is that it's about principle over anything. So you're not working. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we actually need you to work. Do we need this extra body in the workforce? Is the workforce suffering because we don't have this person? No.
Right. Someone's going to take that job. You're fine.
Right. We don't have like a bunch of work it's not getting done because so many people are lazy. Rather, it is, I can't stand the idea that a person is getting something. And when we say getting something, I'm not saying, like, this guy isn't getting, like, a 6-figure salary.
Right.
He's not living comfortably.
Right. Food
He's
stamps,
arguably
it's not a lot.
barely, like, welfare is not, anyway.
And these are the same people, of course, who are totally willing to put 24 million people off of health insurance.
Exactly. That, and then, or
disproportionately hurting poor people.
Right. And then I think a similar thread can be seen when we talk about immigration. And people talk. So, okay, recently that woman who voted for Trump, her husband was an illegal immigrant. Do you remember that?
There was a story about this somewhere.
There's a story about that. So, and everybody's very understandably like, what's the thing? Like, I never.
So she voted for Trump. Her husband's an illegal immigrant.
Yeah, he immigrated illegally from Mexico, has kids, owns a business, is an upstanding member of society.
And what happened to him?
He got deported.
And then,
and she was like, "What?" And so, and
God, I want to feel sympathy for her. And
I know,
part of
and
me is like, come on.
My brother keeps trying to talk me into being more sympathetic, and I'm sort of.
I don't have a heart like that.
No, I don't either. And it's just this thing of like, okay, we keep seeing these people say, "Oh my God, I didn't think it would happen to me," and like that's all he said he would do. That, and does something have to happen to you personally?
Right.
To make it a problem. Do
it's
you
the
have
same
to have
argument,
a gay kid to be pro-gay marriage?
Yeah. Do you have to
are you Megyn
have
Kelly
a
Olsen,
daughter?
you have a baby,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh shit, women should get maternity leave. Or do you have a daughter, you're like, oh, maybe guys shouldn't harass women on the street. Like, oh, now that it affects me personally, now that it's a Jessica problem, maybe we should do something about this. But if it's not something I'm ever going to have to worry about, then what are you worried about it for?
Right.
And when you know, I troll comment sections, and I know I need to stop. It's bad for my mental health, but I can't stop. And every time they do an art, so there's a ton of articles about this particular woman who is aggrieved because her husband was torn away from her family. I mean, it's a sad story. She has kids. He's a business owner. But in 2000 or something, he came over here undocumented.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing in the comments of, well, good. He did something wrong. He deserves the punishment. And for some reason, I just don't get that point of view of like, if it's just the principle. It doesn't matter if you've done nothing wrong or if the border, the wall to get here, whether it's emotional, whether it's a physical wall or the paperwork wall, is so great that people are waiting for years and years and years and years to get here. I'm losing my train. It's just a thing that I find really, I just don't get this idea of like, you would think the party of
biblical values would have some heart.
I know, because, I mean, they're eye for an eye, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's very much, you did something wrong, you deserve the punishment. It doesn't matter if, like, you didn't actually endanger or hurt somebody. It just matters that you broke a rule and you have to go to jail. And it's the same thing about, like, drugs.
And by the way, not to cut you off there, but if they care so much about what the Bible says about this, the Gospels in Matthew, Jesus literally says, "For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink."
Yeah.
The whole thing about let's judge societies by how we treat the least of these. Mm-hmm. And that's totally not what they want to do. By the way, Arrington, the guy who's quoting the Bible to take these people, to make these people not get their food stamps, he's been married 3 times, like the Bible demands, I guess. So,
God, the hypocrisy. It's sometimes I feel like we do this show and I am yelling about the same shit over and over.
I got one more thing to make you yell, by the way.
Oh my God. But I feel like I yell at same things over and over because it's just the same bullshit packaged differently. It is these men who want to shove their version of morality down my throat, but can't even walk the walk in their own right.
Right.
Like these men who are who are trying to pass anti-gay legislators and like sucking guys off and airport bathrooms. I don't give a shit. Like,
I was in one of those bathrooms today where one of the Republicans got caught.
Oh, did you take a picture?
Yes,
You did, didn't you?
totally did. I had to Google like which bathroom. Oh, hey, it's this one right here.
Wait, you went to the actual physical bathroom?
Was in the alleyway outside the walkway of the airport.
God.
I'm like, that's the one.
That's the weirdest thing you've ever
Minneapolis,
done.
baby. Just for a layover. Let me quote one more thing to make you angry.
Oh, God.
This is to paraphrase Gabe Ortiz at the Daily Kos. If Republicans were genuinely angry about people wasting taxpayer money because they're able to work but choose not to, you would think they would condemn the president who spends every weekend at a golf course.
Oh, shit.
Mic drop. There you go.
Can I drop this mic?
No, it's expensive.
Okay. Again, the cognitive dissonance of people who were on that Trump train of like, Obama plays so much golf and blah, 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 and like he's bilking the system. And what? God, did I read this right? That Trump is on track to spend more money in his first year than Obama did in 4 or
Haven't heard it.
8.
Would totally believe it.
Yeah, I'd have to verify that. I should do research before these.
Nah.
And they're still... Or they're saying, oh, well, he's doing work on the golf course. I'm like, what the...
Yeah.
I mean, and it really makes me think, are these people just fucking racist? Like, honestly, is that what it is? Is it just these people see a black man on the golf course and, like, think he's bilking people? I don't know. Maybe that's too big a stretch.
I think they would have said it about Hillary. I think they would have said it about any Democratic president, too. So it's... as much as tempting as it is to blame it all on racism of Republicans, no, I think they would have done it to anybody. Which, yeah. I'm not saying they're not racist,
what
but
if
there's
Hillary
more to
said,
it.
I will never be in a room alone with a man unless Bill is there?
Which,
what would happen?
oh my God.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We should probably end it there.
Okay.
I'm sure there'll be more.
Yeah.
We'll do this again because it's nice
try
to
do
vent.
this on the regs.
I know.
I'm sorry I said on the regs. I didn't mean to.
That's all
I
right.
take it
I'll
back.
edit it out.
Yeah,
there's so much to vent about. But hey, if you're listening, thank you for listening.
We didn't even get to Flynn in Russia.
Yeah, I know.
That's not really in our wheelhouse, though, I
No,
guess.
you know what's interesting, though? As someone who follows the news all the time, at this point, I have no idea what the hell's going on anymore. It changes so quickly. I'm like, I don't know who knows what and who doesn't and whatever. I'm trying to follow, but good luck.
It's so much.
So yeah, we'll do this again soon because there's a lot of stories popping up, and it's kind of fun to just vent.
I enjoy it.
It would be nice if I should mention, we always do try to either interview or bring on people who disagree with us. Like the invitations do go out, but sometimes they just they don't respond.
Which is too bad because I enjoy that. Once in a while. Although this is
so we'll see if we can make that happen.
Yeah,
at
we
some
haven't
point
done
soon.
like a you and me sit down and interview people in a minute.
Yeah.
What happened to that?
We'll try to do that
We
soon.
can do a throwback.
Yeah.
To the first 120 episodes.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks,
if you want to know
guys.
more, go to friendlyatheistpodcast.com and patreon.com/humanity.
Don't look at me like I'm gonna know that.
I'm trying to remember the stuff.
My Etsy shop is Bitches Get Stitched Done. Thanks. I've gotten a few orders. It's been very nice. And people have been very kind to me on that.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.